Thank you for spending a little time here with this story. Before we begin, please consider subscribing, liking the video, leaving a comment, or sharing it with someone who enjoys meaningful science fiction. This story begins with one quiet signal. The Galaxy Council calls it noise, but one human rescue commander is not ready to walk away. And what he finds in the dark may change how the entire galaxy decides who is worth saving. Now, let's begin. The alien system could not understand why humans kept coming back. Adam Keller first heard the sound while standing beside a stack of sealed rescue stretchers. It was not a scream. It was not even a voice. It was a thin, broken pulse that came through Waystation Ardent's damaged relay as a dry tap, then a pause, then two more taps. The first hour after the accident had taught Adam more about the station than any briefing could have. Waystation Ardent was not glamorous. It was a place of delayed departures, tired families, freight pilots sleeping in chairs, and children chasing light strips while their parents argued over transit papers. It belonged to the part of the galaxy that kept moving while diplomats gave speeches somewhere else. That was why Earth had answered so quickly. Half the station's traffic moved through humanitarian corridors that richer worlds used but rarely maintained. The official Council rescue net could coordinate the response, but it could not be everywhere at once. Earth Response Fleet 7 had been nearby after delivering medical supplies to a mining settlement. Adam had brought his people in before the legal handoffs were finished, because the station was already dying by then. By the time the Council command vessel arrived, Adam's team had pulled 32 people from outer compartments. The early saves had been clean, the kind of work every species understood. Cut a door, seal a leak, stabilize a patient, move on. Then the easy sectors emptied. The living became harder to find, and the rules became louder. That was how disaster often changed shape. At first, it was fire, metal, air, and blood. Later, it became signatures, thresholds, permissions, and the quiet pressure of officials who wanted the scene to stop producing questions. Most of the alien officers in the coordination bay did not look up. They had already heard thousands of noises from the wrecked station. Pipes flexed. Hull plates cooled. Loose tools struck walls in dead compartments. Dying machines made sounds that could fool a tired ear. Adam did look up. He was the chief rescue commander for Earth Response Fleet 7, a civilian rescue unit attached to the wider interstellar relief network. He had been sent to Waystation Ardent because the station served Earth merchant routes, roving refugee corridors, and several small colony lines that had no rescue fleets of their own. His job was simple to state and hard to finish. Find the living. Bring them out. Stop before he lost his team for nothing. The coordination bay hung inside the outer shell of the damaged station. It was close enough for rescue shuttles to dock and far enough from the burning core to keep breathing. Beyond the armored windows, Waystation Ardent turned slowly against a field of cold stars. Whole sections of the station had gone dark. Others flashed with emergency lights, red and white and sickly green, like wounds opening and closing. Misread, Earth's signal engineer, leaned over a console. "Commander Keller," she said, "I need you to hear this." Adam Siteput Besideher. He was 46 years old, broad-shouldered, quiet, with gray beginning at his temples and the still face of a man who had learned not to spend fear where it did not help. He wore a plain dark rescue suit with the Earth emblem on one sleeve. The suit had scratches on its chest plate from older missions. Adam had never polished them out. Noma replayed the sound. Top. Pause. Top. Top. The Council rescue system answered at once in a calm, translated voice. Background structural noise. Confidence in life signal is below threshold. Across the bay, Commander Ver Solon of the Rovin Accord heard the system and folded his long silver hands behind his back. Rovins were tall, narrow beings with smooth blue-gray skin and black eyes that rarely blinked. Their fleet had arrived before Earth's, then moved to the safer outer sectors when the Council algorithm marked the inner ring as lost. "The silent ring is closed," Ver said. "The system has ruled." Adam kept his eyes on Noma's screen. The silent ring was the old maintenance belt around Waystation Ardent's core. It held crew quarters, transit lockers, emergency dorms, and a low-gravity clinic used by smaller species during long travel. After the energy accident, the ring had lost its main power. The Council system had examined the available signals, compared them against its survival models, and declared the area no longer worth entry. In Council language, that meant no verified life signs. In plain human language, it meant no one was supposed to go back. Dr. Lyra's son, Earth's rescue physician, came up behind Adam with a medical tablet in one hand. "The station will begin core separation in 3 hours," she said. "Maybe less if the thermal spike grows. If that ring separates, anything inside goes with it." Adam nodded once. "Play it again." Noma did. "Top. Pause. Top. Top." Adam heard something in the space between the pulses. Not words. Not proof. Just intention. It was a broken rhythm from somewhere deep in metal, repeating because something alive had decided repetition mattered. Marshal Thorne's voice came through the Council channel before Adam could speak. Thorne was not physically aboard Way Station Ardent. He supervised emergency protocol from a Council security vessel several thousand kilometers away. His image appeared above the main display, a stern face with copper skin, pale eyes, and ceremonial rescue authority marked across his collar. "Earth Commander," Thorne said, "the Ardent system has closed silent ring entry. Your vessels are to support evacuation from verified sectors only." Adam looked at the dark curve of the station. "We are not entering on a guess," Adam said. "We are verifying an unresolved signal. The signal has been classified by a model that has already lost most of the ring's sensor coverage." Thorne's eyes narrowed slightly. "The model exists because commanders under stress hear patterns and noise. That is why civilized rescue has rules." Adam did not answer at once. For 1 second, he was no longer in Way Station, Ardent's coordination bay. He was 8 years younger, standing inside another rescue platform, listening to another system say no viable survivors remained. He had obeyed then. He had withdrawn his team. 2 days later, delayed logs showed one survivor had breathed for another 5 hours after the withdrawal. No one blamed Adam. The system had ruled. The mission report had cleared him. He had never cleared himself. The old mission that followed him had been called Brindlegate. Adam had never said the name aloud unless a report required it. It had been a colony elevator failure above a small ice moon, with 2 rescue craft damaged and a storm of debris crossing the approach path every 19 minutes. The Council model had closed the inner shaft after the heat signatures faded. Adam had agreed because the law was clear and the risk to his team was real. For years, people told him he had made the only rational choice. They said that in rescue, guilt was just another wound you had to learn to carry. Then a maintenance buffer recovered from the wreck showed that a trapped worker had used a hand tool to tap against a pipe for hours after the closure. No one had heard it live because the signal had fallen below priority. Adam had read that report once. Then he had read it again in the dark of his cabin until the words stopped changing and the meaning did not. Since then, he had never treated a weak signal as an inconvenience. He treated it as a question that deserved an answer. Adam returned to the present and turned to his own team. "Small entry group," he said. "No hero line. Noma keeps the signal locked. Dr. Sun stays in triage until we confirm biological profile. Lieutenant Harrow, you take Shuttle 2 and hold outside the breakpoint. If the ring shifts, you pull us by tether, not by courage." Lieutenant Mark Harrow, Adam's deputy, looked toward the Council display. "Sir, if we go in after closure, Earth Response loses Council liability protection." "Then record that I gave the order." "That is not what I meant." "I know." Adam softened his voice. "But we heard something. We check it." Dr. Sun glanced at the medical readings from Silent Ring. "If it is structural noise, we lose time. If it is not," Adam said, "someone loses everything." No one spoke after that. They went in through a torn service spine, where cables hung like black roots in low gravity. Adam moved first, not because he thought a commander should pretend to be fearless, but because the path was unstable and he wanted his people to see how slow he meant to go. The corridor breathed around them. Every few seconds, air escaped somewhere beyond the walls with a faint white hiss. Noma's voice followed through the helmet channel. "Signal is ahead and down. About 80 meters. It keeps dropping under the noise. Keep it alive for us, Adam said. The system still says below threshold. Then the system can listen with us. They reached a hatch half sealed by warped metal. Lieutenant Harrow anchored the tether and looked through a narrow gap. I have no light inside. Adam placed a vibration pad against the hatch. Noma, send the rhythm back. Noma sent it. Talp. Pause. Talp. Talp. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then something answered from the other side. Talp. Pause. Talp. Talp. Dr. Sun swore softly. Adam did not. His throat had tightened, and he needed his voice clean. Cut the hinge, he said. They opened the hatch by hand. Inside the compartment, cold vapor rolled over the floor. A figure lay folded between two storage racks, wrapped in a thermal sheet that had gone stiff. She was not human. Her skin was a pale green-blue, and her limbs were thin, jointed in two places. A small emergency rod was clutched in her hand. She had been tapping it against the rack. Dr. Sun slid in beside her. Body temperature is low, but that may be normal for her species. Pulse is slow, very slow. She is alive. The council system spoke through Adam's helmet. Life sign verified. Nobody answered it. They pulled the survivor out before the compartment lost the last of its pressure. By the time Adam returned to the coordination bay, the woman's eyes had opened behind the treatment mask. She could not speak the common trade language. She only lifted one narrow hand and pressed it against the clear cover of the stretcher. The gesture was not a salute. It was not thanks in any formal sense. It was just contact, a living being proving she was still there. The bay grew quiet around her. Marshal Thorne's face returned to the main display. One survivor does not invalidate a closure decision. Adam removed his helmet. Sweat had dried cold along his hairline. No, he said, but it invalidates certainty. The rescue of Kessa changed the air inside the coordination bay. It was not triumph. It was discomfort. A living survivor was always good news. But this survivor had arrived carrying an accusation no one had meant to create. The council monitors reviewed their own displays without meeting anyone's eyes. The roving staff spoke in low tones near the far wall. One of the smaller species delegates, a soft-voiced observer from Loom, stood beside the medical line and stared at Kessa's thin hand against the stretcher cover. Adam noticed the observer because she was crying without sound. Someone you know? He asked. The observer shook her head. No, but my people cool when oxygen is low. Very low. We have always been told the system knows that. Adam did not answer. He looked back at the main display, where Silent Ring remained shaded black. The black area no longer looked empty to him. It looked like a room full of people being asked to prove they existed. Noma turned from her console. Her face had changed. Commander, she said, there are more. The second rescue did not feel like the first. The first had been a challenge to a machine. The second became a challenge to everyone who trusted the machine because it was easier than listening. The new signals did not come as one rhythm. They came as fragments. A low repeating scrape. A heat bloom too faint for the council system to trust. A chemical marker from a species whose blood slowed under oxygen loss instead of spiking in distress. The algorithm rejected each one in a different tone of calm authority. Adam made Noma's save every rejection. By the time Earth Shuttle 2 entered the Silent Ring again, the first survivor had a name. Dr. Sun learned it from a translation band recovered from her clothing. She was Kessa Mar, a transport clerk from one of the small water moons. Near the Edrin corridor, her species could drop into a cold preservation state when oxygen ran thin. The council system had recorded her body temperature as fatal. That model was trained on the wrong bodies, Dr. Sun said as she walked beside Adam to the airlock. Adam checked the tether seal on his suit. How wrong? I do not know yet. But if the ring clinic was full of low metabolic species, then the system may have declared half the survivors dead because they survived differently. Lieutenant Harrow heard them and looked uneasy. That will not make the council happy. No, Adam said. It will make them responsible. The second trip also forced Adam to watch his own team divide in silence. Harrow was loyal, but loyalty did not make him blind. Crews believe in the mission, but she had a younger brother in Earth rescue training and knew how quickly a brave story could turn into a folded uniform. Dr. Sun trusted Adam's judgment, yet she trusted injured bodies more than principles. During the loading pause, Harrow caught Adam at the shuttle hatch. Permission to speak plainly? Always. We are not only rescuing survivors now. We are challenging the system in front of every fleet here. I know, if this goes wrong, they will not say the station killed us. They will say you needed to be right. Adam looked past him toward the wounded ring. That is why we plan carefully. Planning carefully may not be enough. No, Adam said. It may not. Harrow waited for speech. Adam had none to give. If I order something reckless, you stop me, Adam said. If I order something hard, you help me do it clean. Harrow held his gaze, then nodded. That was the closest they came to agreement. They entered through a different route, moving below a broken tram line into a corridor where emergency panels flickered without rhythm. The station's core separation clock counted down on every working display. 2 hours and 20 minutes. Then 2 hours and 19. This time, they found 7 people in a clinic storage wing. 3 were children from a marsh species whose breathing cycle was so slow that Dr. Sun had to remind the team not to panic between breaths. 2 were elderly maintenance workers. 1 was a human mechanic from a lunar cargo crew, barely conscious. The 7th was Rovan. The Rovan wore the white sleeve band of a civilian technical office. His chest rose in shallow movements beneath a cracked survival shell. When Harrow saw the insignia, his jaw tightened. They voted against our independent rescue charter last year, he said through the private team channel. Adam was helping Dr. Sun free the survival shell. A vote did not send that signal. Harrow looked at him. A living person did, Adam said. The words settled in the channel. No one argued. One of the marsh children woke during transport. His eyes were wide and black, and his small chest rose only once every long count. The translator could not find his language at first. He kept making a soft clicking sound that made Dr. Sun lean closer. He is asking for his mother, she said after the translator caught enough structure. Is she here? Adam asked. Dr. Sun scanned the survivor manifest from the compartment. Not in this group. Adam felt the old rescue answer rise in him. The one every commander learned because hope could harm as much as fear. We do not know yet, he said to the child, letting the translator carry the words. We are still looking. The child watched his face as if trying to decide whether a human face could be trusted. Then he curled his hand around the strap of the stretcher and did not let go until they reached triage. Later, Adam learned the mother had been moved to another emergency recess before the blast doors fell. That meant she was either deeper in silent ring or gone. He did not tell himself which was more likely. Likelihood had already failed too many people that day. They brought the 7 out in 2 trips. Outside the medical bay, the first reporters had already gathered behind a council security line. News drones were not allowed inside active rescue zones, but that had never stopped a determined network from hovering near the edges of grief. Within an hour, the first story spread across the local net. Earth team recovers survivors from closed sector. Then another headline appeared. Council model questioned. After rescue from lost ring. Then a third, sharper one followed. Humans risk multi-species protocol for emotional rescue. Adam did not watch the feeds. He had no time for them. But Thorne watched, and so did every delegate who knew that rescue law was not only about saving lives. It was also about blame. Thorne called Adam on a direct line after the second return. Commander Keller, you are creating a public misunderstanding. Adam stood in a side corridor while the medics worked behind him. He could hear low voices, oxygen pumps, and one child crying in a language no translator had yet identified. People being alive is not a misunderstanding, Adam said. The public does not understand probability. The public understands a stretcher. Thorne's expression hardened. If every team commander follows your example, crews will die chasing ghosts. Then show me these are ghosts. The system has shown you. The system has been wrong twice. It found most of the station's survivors correctly, and it gave up on the ones who did not fit. Thorne leaned closer to his camera. Be careful. Earth has fought for decades to be trusted inside Shared Rescue Command. Do not spend that trust on a moral performance. Adam held his gaze. You think I want cameras? I think humans have a talent for making private tragedy into public judgment. For the first time, Adam felt anger rise. He let it pass before he answered. No, Marasad. We have a habit of going back when we still hear someone. Thorn ended the call. Noma found Adam a few minutes later with a data slate clutched so tightly her knuckles had whitened. I compared the rejected signals, she said. Not just from this station. From archived council training sets. Adam looked at her. How did you get archived sets? Open Emergency Standards Library. It is public if you know where not to blink. That was Noma's way of saying she had found something embarrassing in plain sight. She showed him a series of signal classifications. The council system trusted high heat, fast pulse rates, oxygen panic spikes, and distress calls in the dominant acoustic bands used by the oldest council species. It downgraded low metabolic signs. It downgraded silent chemical distress markers. It downgraded irregular or tactile signals if they came from species without strong council representation. Adam read the pattern, then read it again. This is not only ardent. No, Noma said. Ardent is where we noticed. The station shuddered. Dust drifted from the corridor seam. Over the general channel, the core separation clock dropped below 2 hours. A Rovan security officer arrived at the edge of Earth's triage zone with 2 council monitors. He wanted custody of the Rovan survivors. Dr. Sun refused until they were medically stable. The officer insisted that Rovan citizens should be transferred to Rovan Command. Adam joined them. Dr. Sun decides movement, Adam said. Not flags. The officer's dark eyes rested on the Earth emblem on Adam's sleeve. Your rescue action has already violated the shared protocol. Do not add unlawful detention. They are patients. They are Rovan. They're alive because we did not ask that first. The officer had no answer ready. That was how Adam knew the words had landed. By then, the political story outside the station had become its own disaster. On one screen, a council safety commentator warned that Earth was creating rescue contagion, a phrase Adam hated the moment he heard it. On another, families of the newly rescued stood outside receiving bays, stunned and furious, asking why their loved ones had been listed as unrecoverable. A third network replayed the first stretcher again and again until Kess's hand against the glass became a symbol neither Earth nor the Council could control. Earth's own government sent no order to stop. It also sent no permission to continue. That was how diplomacy spoke when it wanted courage and deniability at the same time. Mira Voss, Earth's crisis envoy to the local council district, was more honest. She called Adam through a private channel from the Earth diplomatic vessel. You are standing in the gap between what Earth believes and what Earth can afford, she said. That is a narrow gap. It always is. Try not to die in it. The third signal came while they were still arguing. It was weaker than the first 2. Noma almost lost it 3 times while trying to isolate it. It came from deep inside Silent Ring, beyond a collapsed transit lock, close to the automated separation couplers. The council system marked the sector black. Full closure. No entry. No liability. No recovery recommendation. Thorn sent the formal order 5 minutes later. Earth Response Fleet 7 is to cease independent rescue operations in Silent Ring. Any further entry will be classified as unauthorized action outside Council emergency protection. Mira called again before Adam could respond. Her calm eyes filled the small screen, and her voice never hurried. Adam, she said, I'm going to speak plainly. If you go back, they could suspend Earth's rescue license across 3 sectors. I know. If someone on your team dies, they will make you the reason shared rescue needs tighter control. I know that too. Mira studied his face through the screen. Tell me what you heard. Adam turned the channel toward Noma's console. Noma played the signal. It was almost nothing. A tremor. A thin pulse under metal stress. But after the first pattern, another joined it. Then a third, not from the same source, but close enough to suggest people clustered together. Mira was silent for a long moment. Can you reach them? Maybe. Can you do it without losing the team? I can reduce the risk. I cannot erase it. Then record everything, Mira said. Every order, every signal, every refusal from the system. If this reaches the council, truth will matter more than courage. Adam's face softened. It always does. No, Mira said. It should. That is not the same thing. The final entry into Silent Ring began with no speech. Adam did not give the kind of command that sounded good in a later retelling. He checked seals. He checked oxygen. He made Harrow repeat the extraction plan twice. He ordered one rescuer to stay behind because her suit joint reported a small pressure lag. She protested. Adam refused. No life would be saved by pretending risk was noble. The corridor into the deep ring had twisted since the last trip. Gravity surged and faded in uneven waves. Loose panels slid under their boots. Once the walls groaned so loudly that even Adam stopped walking. Separation coupler is heating, Noma said from the bay. You have 40 minutes before that path becomes unstable. Understood. Commander, the council system has locked me out of shared mapping. Adam looked at the blank section of his wrist display. Use our scan. It is rough. So are we. Harrow gave a short laugh despite himself. They cut through a maintenance partition and entered an old waiting chamber near the ring clinic. The room had once held benches, water packs, and sleeping straps for travelers between ships. Now it held drifting sheets, broken handrails, and frost along the ceiling. At first, Adam saw no one. Then something moved behind a collapsed partition. Dr. Sun pushed past him, scanned, and froze. Multiple life signs. Low. Very low. They found 12 people in an emergency recess that had sealed only halfway. Some were conscious. Some were not. 2 were Rovan. One wore a data harness fused to his shoulder plate. He clutched a small core in his long hand with such force that Harrow had to cut the glove away rather than pull it free. The Rovan's eyes opened as Adam leaned over him. Do not give it to Solon, the survivor whispered through a broken translator. Adam did not ask who he meant. What is your name? Tarin Vali. We are getting you out, Tarin. Tarin's grip tightened around the core. They heard us. The waiting chamber shook before Adam could ask more. A sharp metal crack passed through the floor. Noma's voice rose in his helmet. Coupler surge. The exit path is closing. Adam made the decision in less than 3 seconds. Harrow, take the first 6. Dr. Sun, package the cold sleepers. I will carry Tarin. Sir, he is Rovan command evidence, Harrow said. He is a patient. He said they heard him. Then he is also a witness. Move. They moved. The return path narrowed as the structure bent under thermal stress. Harrow's shuttle could not dock cleanly, so the team used tethers and pushed stretchers through open gaps while the station tried to pull itself apart around them. One stretcher jammed. A rescuer named Elena Cruz braced her shoulder against it and shoved, until the lock cleared. A loose support beam struck her suit and spun her into the wall. Adam caught her tether before she drifted into the exposed conduit field. Cruz, report. My arm is broken, she said through clenched teeth. Suit is sealed. Can you move? I can swear. Do that after extraction. The last 20 meters took longer than the first 200. Tarin lost consciousness twice. Adam held him against his chest plate with one arm and pulled along the tether with the other. The Rovan was lighter than a human of the same height, but the data core in his hand kept striking Adam's suit like a small hard heartbeat. They cleared the hatch 3 minutes before the inner corridor collapsed. When Shuttle 2 broke away, the silent ring behind them folded inward. A bright line flashed along the separation couplers. The station's old system, blind and obedient, cut away the ring it had already declared dead. The rescued watched from stretchers and floor straps as the ring drifted from way station ardent, turning in silence. Nobody cheered. Cruz was taken to surgery for her arm. Dr. Sun sent 9 survivors into critical care. Tarin Vale was placed under Earth medical protection because he would not release the data core except to Adam. The data core itself was small enough to fit in Adam's palm. It looked ordinary, a black oval with one cracked corner and a strip of Rovan script burned into the side. Tarin treated it as if it were heavier than a body. When Dr. Sun tried to sedate him for treatment, Terran fought the mask with the weak panic of someone who had spent too long unheard. Adam took the core from his hand only after making one promise. I will keep it in sight until you can speak. Terran's eyes focused on him with effort. Not Rovan custody, Earth medical custody. Not council automatic review. Manual Seal. Witnessed. Terran released the core then, not because he trusted Earth fully, but because trust had become a matter of who had actually entered the dark. When Terran could speak again, Mira Voss was already aboard. She stood beside Adam in the medical isolation room, where the Rovan lay beneath a warm field. His long face looked hollow from cold and fear. I was assigned to signal review, Terran said. Rovan Rescue Command received tactile and low metabolic pings from Silent Ring. We logged them as uncertain. Uncertain is not the same as noise, Mira said. No. Terran closed his eyes. Commander Solon requested downgrade. If the signals remained active, Rovan ships would be required to re-enter. The Council system accepted the downgrade because the confidence level was already low. Adam looked at the core beside Terran's bed. How many signals? From this event, at least 24. Dr. Sun, standing at the back of the room, went still. Terran opened his eyes again. From older events, I do not know, but the same pattern exists. Low represented species. Low metabolic species. Migrant corridors. Outer colonies. The system saves the people it was taught to recognize. Myra's face did not change, but Adam knew her well enough to see the shift. This was no longer only Adam's hearing. This was no longer only one station. This was a structure. The first accusation against Earth arrived before Terran's fever broke. Council-affiliated networks reported that the Earth team had manipulated unclear signals to justify illegal entry. Rovan Accord officials stated that Earth had used a tragedy to shame other rescue forces. Marshal Thorne announced that Adam Keller would be summoned to the Orison Chamber for emergency review. The charge list was longer than Adam expected. Unauthorized entry into a closed rescue sector. Reckless endangerment of rescue personnel. Improper retention of Rovan survivors. Possible interference with shared signal classification. Damage to public trust in Council emergency systems. Mira read the list aloud in Adam's temporary quarters. The room was small, with one narrow bunk and a window that looked toward the damaged station. Adam had not slept in more than 30 hours. Possible interference, Mira said, lowering the slate. That one is dangerous. It lets them suggest your evidence is contaminated before anyone sees it. Adam sat on the edge of the bunk. His hands were clean now, but he could still feel Terran's data core striking his suit. Can we protect the survivors? Dr. Sun can protect them medically. Politically, not forever. What about Terran? If he testifies, Rovan will call him unstable from trauma. He almost froze to death because they stopped listening. Yes, Mira said, and they will say that makes him unreliable. Adam stood and looked out the window. Way Station Ardent was no longer burning. It looked calm from a distance, as if nothing inside it had ever begged to be heard. Mira stepped beside him. Earth can send me alone, she said. You do not have to sit under their lights while they try to turn this into your failure. Adam shook his head. I gave the order. You also saved 43 people. I gave the order. Mira sighed softly. That stubbornness is going to make my job harder. It usually does. For the record, I am glad you are coming. Adam glanced at her. Not because you speak better than I do, Mira said. You do not. But because this hearing cannot look like diplomacy cleaning up after a reckless man. It has to look like responsibility standing beside its own decision. Adam did not smile, but something in his eyes eased. Before they left for the council vessel, he walked through triage. Kessamar was awake. She still could not speak the common language well, but the translation patch gave her short phrases. Earth Commander, she said as Adam approached. Just Adam is fine. She took a slow breath. Systems said no one. Adam looked at the monitors beside her bed. Yes, but you came. We heard you. Her fingers closed lightly around the edge of the blanket. My children will hear that. Adam had no answer that would not sound too small. He nodded and moved on. Cruz was awake after surgery, her arm sealed in a regeneration brace. She lifted her uninjured hand when he came in. "Do not look like that," she said. "I signed up for rescue, not furniture delivery. You got hurt because of my order. I got hurt because a station fell apart. Your order is why 12 people came out before it did. You still might lose motion in that shoulder." "I might." She held his gaze. "Do not make my injury their argument." That sentence followed him all the way to Orison chamber. During the flight to Orison, Mira made Adam review the hearing path 3 times. She did not coach him to sound noble. She coached him to stay precise. "Do not say the council abandoned people," she said. "They did. Some did. Some trusted the wrong process. If you accuse the whole chamber too early, they defend the chamber. Make them defend the data instead." Adam leaned back in a narrow seat of the diplomatic shuttle. His body finally understood how tired he was. "You sound like you have done this before. I have watched powerful rooms protect themselves. They do not begin by lying. They begin by narrowing the question until truth cannot fit inside it." Across the aisle, Dr. Sun reviewed survivor charts. Noma slept with one hand still resting on her signal slate. Harrow sat alone near the rear, staring at his helmet. Adam joined him before final approach. "You think I made the wrong call?" Harrow took a long breath. "I think you made a call that only looks clean after people come out alive." "That is fair. I also think if we had stayed out, I would be hearing that signal for the rest of my life." Adam sat beside him. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Harrow said, "Do not let them make this about whether we were brave." "I will not." "Good. Brave is easy to dismiss. Alive is harder." The Galaxy Council did not place accused commanders in cages. It did not need to. Orison Chamber was built to make anyone standing in its center feel smaller than the system above them. The chamber was circular, white stone and dark glass, with rings of delegate seats rising like terraces around a deep central floor. Translation lights glowed above each seat. News access was restricted, but the proceedings streamed to every registered member world. The public was not in the room, yet Adam could feel them beyond it. Families, rescue workers, officials, survivors, people who had lost someone to an old closed sector and now wondered what the word closed had hidden. High Arbiter Seelan Ara sat at the highest platform. She was older than Thorn, with a face lined by age and an expression too controlled to read. Marshal Kale Thorne stood at the lower prosecution rail. Commander Ver Solon sat behind him with the Rovan delegation, elegant, still, and watchful. Adam stood beside Mira Voss on the central floor. He wore a clean uniform because Mira had insisted. He disliked how clean it felt. Seelan Ara opened the hearing. "Commander Adam Keller of Earth Response Fleet 7. This chamber has convened to examine actions taken during the way station Arden emergency. This is not a criminal tribunal. It is a protocol review with authority to suspend operational rights under council emergency law." Mira leaned slightly toward Adam and murmured, "That means they can punish without calling it punishment." "I know." The chamber record also displayed every legal consequence Adam had triggered. Earth could lose automatic docking rights for rescue vessels in several sectors. Earth crews could be forced to operate under non-human command approval during future emergencies. Insurance pools for shared rescue could exclude Earth teams if the Council marked them unreliable. That mattered because rescue was not only courage and shuttles. It was access, fuel, legal corridors, emergency landing rights. It was permission to cross borders when every minute mattered. If Earth lost that trust, future human teams might arrive at disasters and wait outside while someone else decided whether they were allowed to help. Adam understood the trap. If he defended only his choice, he might save his name and damage Earth. If he defended only Earth, he might leave the survivors as a side argument. The only path through was narrower than either side wanted. He had to show that going back had not been a human exception to civilized rescue. It had been rescue doing what rescue was supposed to do. Thorne began with precision. He did not insult humans. He did not call Earth primitive. He did something more effective. He made Adam sound dangerous. Shared rescue protocol exists because grief produces bad command decisions, Thorne said. Every species represented here knows the temptation to chase one more signal. Every rescue commander has heard a sound in static and wanted it to be a voice. That is why we built a system larger than individual emotion. Several delegates nodded. Thorne turned toward Adam. Commander Keller rejected closure, re-entered a forbidden zone, damaged rescue equipment, injured personnel, retained foreign citizens under Earth control, and then presented the result as proof that protocol itself was flawed. If rewarded, this behavior will not save lives. It will encourage future commanders to gamble with crews for public praise. Adam felt the chamber shift against him. Not hatred. Worse, agreement. Thorne's argument was reasonable. That was what made it strong. Adam had sent people into danger. Crews had been hurt. A shuttle had nearly been lost. If every week's signal demanded a rescue, more rescuers would die. Ara looked down at him. Commander Keller, do you dispute the injury to your personnel? No. Do you dispute that you entered after closure? No. Do you dispute that council protection had been withdrawn? No. A low sound moved through the chamber. Myra's fingers touched the edge of her slate, but she did not interrupt. Thorne stepped closer to his rail. Then what exactly is Earth disputing? Adam looked up at the rings of delegates. That the closure was honest. The chamber stilled. Adam continued, his voice even. I am not asking this council to pretend rescue has no limits. I know it has limits. I have ordered withdrawals. I have lived with them. I am disputing a system that called living people background noise before it had the right to stop listening. Thorne replied at once. Emotional framing. Recorded evidence, Adam said. Mira stepped forward before Thorne could cut in again. High Arbiter, Earth requests permission to present the ardent sequence in survivor order, not algorithm order. Ara's eyes narrowed slightly. Explain. The algorithm grouped signals by confidence. That hides the real decision. We asked to show each rejected signal beside the person found after that rejection. Thorne's voice sharpened. That is theatrical. Mira turned to him. No, Marsad. It is traceable. Ara considered, then nodded. Proceed. The first image was not dramatic. It showed Kessa Mars' signal as the council system had seen it. A faint tactile pulse. Low heat. No vocal distress. The classification appeared beside it. Background structural noise. Then Mira showed the hatch opening. The thermal sheet. Dr. Sen's reading. Kessa alive in the stretcher. Mira did not speak for several seconds. She let the room do the work. The second case showed the marsh children whose breaths came too slowly for the panic model. The system called their signs non-viable. Dr. Sen's scan showed deep survival respiration. All three lived. The third case showed two maintenance workers. The fourth showed the human mechanic, which made several delegates shift because no one could dismiss the pattern as only alien biology. The system had missed him because his signal was masked beneath a Rovan transmitter wash. Then came the Rovan civilians. Commander Solin's face remained still, but Adam saw one hand tighten at the edge of his chair. Dr. Sun spoke next. She did not use long medical language. She explained that different species survived distress in different ways. Some burned hot, some cooled down, some screamed, some became silent, some produced chemical markers rather than acoustic calls. A rescue system that trusted only the loudest, warmest, most familiar signs would save familiar bodies first. As the survivor sequence continued, the room began to lose its neat categories. A delegate who had supported Thorne lowered his eyes when a rescued elder from a dust world appeared beside the words non-viable respiratory pattern. A trade representative from a wealthy core species asked whether the data had been independently verified. Mira answered by showing the raw timestamps, the Earth suit logs, and the Council's own automated confirmations after each survivor reached Trief. No one could say Earth had invented the people. No one could say the system had not rejected the signals first. Dr. Sen's testimony carried a different kind of force because she refused to make it political. She spoke as a physician, and physicians were harder to accuse of theater when patients sat behind them breathing. A body in distress does not owe us familiar signs, she said. If the model waits for every species to suffer like the species that built the model, then the model will call difference death. That sentence traveled through the chamber faster than any formal argument. Adam saw scribes mark it. He saw delegates whisper. He saw Thorne's mouth tighten because the phrase was simple enough for the public to remember. Noma Reed followed from the witness line. She played the raw signal from the first silent ring pulse. Top. Pause. Top. Top. Then she played the clean version, slowed and filtered. A voice emerged. Thin, broken, but there. Not words. A pattern. Kessa Mar's hand rose from the survivor platform. She repeated the same rhythm on the rail before her. Top. Pause. Top. Top. The chamber heard a person answer the noise that had once erased her. Even Thorne did not speak immediately. Mira let the silence breathe, then brought up the wider pattern. She did not accuse every council species. She did not need to. She showed archived rescue standards, confidence weights, biological defaults, species categories with too little representation. She showed records from outer corridors where closures had occurred after low confidence signals were dismissed. Then she stopped before the chamber drowned in data. The Arden event is not proof of every past failure, Mira said, but it is proof that the system can fail in a predictable direction. It fails against those who are quiet by biology, distant by politics, or poor by representation. Thorne rose slowly. Earth is attempting to turn an emergency review into an indictment of shared rescue. Mira looked at him. No, the survivors did that. Seelan Ara called the chamber to order before the murmurs could grow. Then Terran Vale entered. He looked fragile under the chamber lights. Rovan formal clothing had been provided to him, but he wore an Earth medical stabilizer across his chest, and everyone saw it. He walked slowly to the witness platform, one hand holding the rail. Commander Solon stood before Terran even spoke. High Arbiter, the Rovan accord object to testimony from a medically compromised citizen under foreign influence. Terran turned his head. Foreign influence kept me alive. A stir moved through the chamber. Seelan Ara studied him. Tarim vale, do. You understand the weight of testimony before this chamber. Ido. Do you speak freely? Terran looked once at Adam, then at the Rovan delegation. For the first time since the station broke, yes. Mira did not rush him. Tell the chamber your role on Way Station Ardent. I was a rescue data technician attached to the Rovan corridor office. I reviewed signal confidence between the station and Rovan command. Did Silent Ring produce signals after closure? Yes. Were they classified as life signs? Some were. Briefly. The word briefly landed like a drop tool. Terran swallowed. Commander Solon requested downgrade to uncertainty, then to background noise. The stated reason was contamination from structural damage. Solon's voice cut across the chamber. Because the sector was unstable, re-entry would have endangered rescue crews. Terran looked at him. The downgrade was requested before the re-entry risk report completed. The chamber went still. Mira asked, why would that matter? Terran closed his eyes, opened them, and spoke more clearly. Under council protocol, if active life signs remain, a withdrawal requires a formal risk override. Commanders must accept responsibility for leaving the signs unresolved. If the signs are downgraded to noise, withdrawal is automatic. No obedience, no responsibility. Adam felt the floor beneath him change, though nothing moved. There was not murder, not open cruelty, something colder, a way to step around responsibility by changing the name of a cry. Myra's voice stayed calm. Did you preserve the original records? Terran lifted the data core. Yes. Solon stood again. His control cracked for the first time. That core contains Rovan command material. It is privileged. Terran looked at him with exhausted contempt. It contains the last hours of people you stopped hearing. Terran's testimony did what Adam's could not. Adam could be framed as stubborn. Mira could be framed as diplomatic. Noma could be framed as technical. Terran was inconvenient because he belonged to the side that wanted the matter contained. He described the signal review room on Ardent before the withdrawal. He described the pressure from Rovan. Command to keep ships outside the unstable ring. He did not portray every officer as cruel. Some had been afraid. Some had believed the council system. Some had looked relieved when the downgrade turned a hard moral decision into an automatic one. That honesty made his words more damaging, not less. The easiest lie, Terran said, was not that they were dead. The easiest lie was that we did not know. Adam watched Commander Solon then. For one brief moment, the Rovan officer did not look arrogant. He looked tired. Adam almost pitied him and then remembered the waiting chamber, the cold bodies not yet dead, and the child asking for his mother. Seal and Ara ordered the Corps entered under chamber seal. Thorn requested a recess. Seelan denied it. For the first time, Adam saw uncertainty on Marshal Thorn's face. Not defeat, not shame yet. A man who had defended a system was suddenly seeing that the system might have learned how to protect itself better than it protected the living. Thorn recovered enough to speak. Even if Rovan Command mishandled classification, that does not justify Earth violating protocol. Adam answered before Mira could. No, it explains why we had to. Thorn turned toward him. You cannot build law on exceptions. Adam looked up at the delegates, then at the survivor platform. That is what you did. You built a rescue law around the bodies your system understood, then called everyone else an exception. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Seal and Ara called for order again, but this time the chamber did not settle the same way. Delegates from smaller worlds had begun requesting recognition. Outer Corridor representatives sent emergency filings. Families of old disaster victims flooded the public record with petitions. The ardent hearing widened in real time, not because Earth demanded it, but because too many people suddenly recognized the shape of their own unanswered grief. The debate after that no longer moved like a hearing. It moved like a dam cracking in controlled stages. A representative from a migrant corridor asked whether rescue confidence scores had ever been audited by population size. A mining coalition asked why. Private carrier logs were excluded from closure decisions. A medical delegate asked why species survival profiles could be marked optional if a station was in a remote sector. Thorn answered what he could. When he could not, he returned to the same ground. Rules saved rescuers. Limits saved fleets. No system could be perfect. Adam agreed with every sentence and still knew they were incomplete. At one point, Seal and Ara asked him directly, Commander Keller, do you believe any commander has the right to ignore closure whenever conscience demands it? No, Adam said. That answer surprised several delegates. He continued, conscience is not enough. That is why my team recorded every signal, every refusal, every medical confirmation, and every injury. I'm not asking you to trust my feelings. I'm asking you to look at what your system dismissed before I made a decision. The answer did more than defend him. It gave uncertain delegates a way to move without seeming to worship human instinct. Adam could see the shift happen. The debate became less about human emotion and more about system accountability. A delegate from the small world of Loom stood with visible effort. Her species was short, gray-skinned, and rarely given central chamber time. My colony lost a transport 9 years ago, she said. The closure report cited low confidence signals. We were told not to reopen the matter because the system had no reason to lie. No one answered her. Another delegate rose. Then another. Thorn tried to keep the hearing narrow. He proposed a formal reprimand for Adam, a limited technical review, and an internal correction to Rovan data handling. It was clean. It was polite. It would have buried the truth under procedure by giving everyone a document to sign. Mira saw it. Adam saw it too. Seal and Ara looked toward Adam. Commander Keller, Earth has presented evidence of serious procedural concern. The Chamber may consider correction. Before we proceed, do you wish to seek sanction against Rovan Accord for endangering its citizens and damaging Earth's operational standing? Mira turned slightly toward Adam. This was the opening many would have taken. Rovan had opposed. Earth for years. Rovan officials had accused him publicly. Commander Solon had tried to take survivors away while they were still in treatment. Adam could have struck hard, and many human worlds would have cheered. He thought of crews in the medical brace, telling him not to make her injury their argument. He thought of Kessa tapping on the rail. He thought of Taryn, still shaking under the lights, holding the record of his own abandonment. Adam took a breath. No. The answer surprised the chamber more than any accusation. Adam continued. Rovan must answer for what Rovan did. But Earth did not come here to trade one public humiliation for another. We came because the system gave commanders a way to stop hearing people and still feel lawful. Solon stared at him. Adam looked back without anger. We saved your citizens because they were alive. Not because they were Rovan. Not because they were useful to Earth. Not because they voted the right way. If this chamber remembers nothing else from Ardent, remember this. No one should have to be our ally before they are worth rescuing. The survivor platform remained silent, but the silence had weight. Mira stepped forward with the proposal she had prepared during the short recess that never happened. Earth called it the Ardent Protocol. It required every unresolved life signal to be tested against species-specific survival ranges before closure. It required independent preservation of raw signal records. It required small and underrepresented species to hold seats on the Rescue Model Review Board. It required any downgrade from life sign to noise to carry a command signature, so responsibility could not vanish inside a machine. Most importantly, it changed one sentence in Council Rescue Law. A sector could no longer be declared lost while unresolved signals remained untested by appropriate biological standards. Thorne objected to the speed of the vote. Solon objected to the inclusion of Rovan material. Larger powers tried to delay implementation until a study cycle could be completed. But the public stream had already heard Kessa's rhythm. It had heard Taryn explain the downgrade. It had seen a list of living survivors beside the word noise. The Council could still resist Earth. It could not resist the people Earth had carried out. High Arbiter Seelan Ara called the emergency vote after 12 hours of argument. By then, Adam's legs ached from standing, his voice had grown rough, and the chamber lights had begun to feel like heat against his skin. The Ardent Protocol passed by a margin narrow enough to show how hard the old system had fought, and wide enough to make the change real. There was no applause, not in Orzen chamber. The delegates of the Galaxy Council preferred dignity when history had just embarrassed them. Seelan Ara delivered the ruling in a tone that carried across the entire hall. Earth Response Fleet 7 is not suspended. Commander Adam Keller is formally censured for entry after closure, with censure held in abeyance under emergency necessity. Rovan Command records will remain under investigation. The shared rescue system will enter immediate revision under the Ardent Protocol. Mira whispered, That is council language for you are right, but we dislike how much. Adam's shoulders lowered for the first time in hours. The hours after the vote were stranger than Adam expected. There was no clean victory, only exhausted movement. Survivors were escorted away. Delegates filed urgent amendments. Rovan aides avoided every camera. Council clerks began building committees before the chamber lights had fully cooled. Mira found Adam in a side passage with a paper cup of water in his hand. He had forgotten to drink it. You did well, she said. I stood there while you did most of the talking. You stood there while they tried to make you ashamed of saving people. That mattered. Adam looked down the passage. Taryn was being helped toward a protected transport by Dr. Sun and 2 Earth guards. Kessa waited near the far arch with the loom observer beside her. When she saw Adam, she tapped the rail once, then twice. He answered with the same rhythm on the side of his cup. It was a small thing. It nearly broke him. Thorne approached after the ruling. Solon did not. The Rovan commander left through a side arch, surrounded by aides, his public face intact, and his private control badly damaged. Thorne stopped before Adam. I still believe rescue needs limits, the marshal said. So do I. You could have killed your crew. Yes. And next time, another commander may use your example badly. Then write better rules, Adam said. Do not write rules that make it easy to abandon the quiet. Thorne studied him. There was no warmth in his face, but there was something Adam had not seen there before. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of doubt. Your species is difficult, Thorne said. Adam almost smiled. Only when someone is still breathing. 3 weeks later, Adam was back in a rescue coordination room. Not Way Station Ardent. That station was under reconstruction, its name now attached to arguments in every rescue academy within council space. This room was smaller, built inside an Earth-led training hub on the edge of the Edron corridor. The walls still smelled of fresh sealant. Cruz was there with her arm in a lighter brace, pretending not to need help. Misread sat at a signal desk, teaching two young alien technicians how to preserve raw data before the system touched it. Dr. Sun was arguing with a council software specialist about cold survival ranges. Mira Voss had returned to diplomatic work, though she sent short messages whenever a committee tried to soften the new protocol. Adam stood near the back with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. On the main display, the revised rescue system processed a simulated accident from a remote mining shuttle. Then the instructor changed one detail. She inserted a weak, low-frequency pulse from a species that, 3 weeks earlier, would have fallen below the trust threshold. The system paused. It did not erase the pulse. It did not call it background noise. It opened a yellow review band and spoke in its calm, translated voice. Unresolved possible life signal. Species-specific verification required. Closure not authorized. For a moment, no one in the room moved. Noma looked over her shoulder at Adam. Dr. Sun stopped mid-argument. Cruz lowered her cup. The sound from the simulation repeated through the speakers. Talp. Pause. Talp. Talp. Adam closed his eyes. Briefly, he did not imagine that the galaxy had become kind. He did not believe one protocol could repair every old loss or cleanse every political instinct from rescue law. Somewhere, a commander would still be afraid. Somewhere, a government would still calculate cost before compassion. Somewhere, a family would still receive a final notice and wonder if it was true. He also knew the change would be tested. Every rule was pure on the day it was written and weaker on the day it became expensive. Someone would try to call the Ardent protocol slow. Someone would say the extra checks cost too much time. Someone would ask why one faint signal should delay a clean closure. When that happened, there would be records. There would be representatives from quiet species in the review room. There would be commanders who could point to Ardent and say the word noise had once hidden 43 living people. But now there was one more barrier between a living person and the word lost. Now a weak signal had to be heard a little longer. Now a system that once made abandonment easy had to ask another question before closing the door. Cruz broke the silence first. Well, she said, looks like the machine learned to hesitate. Adam opened his eyes. No, he said softly. It learned to listen. The room returned to work. The training signal continued. A rescue team, mixed species and young enough to still believe rules were clean things, began planning a return path into the simulated wreck. Adam watched them mark the hazard zones. They argued about risk as they should. They planned tethers, backup oxygen, medical handling, and withdrawal points. They did not treat courage as a substitute for method. They did not treat method as an excuse to stop hearing. That was enough for the moment. Beyond the training hub, ships crossed the corridor in steady lines, carrying traders, migrants, technicians, families, and strangers who would never know Adam Keller's name. He did not need them to know it. He only hoped that if one of them ever vanished behind metal and static, if their breath slowed or their voice failed, if their hands could only tap against a wall, the galaxy would not be so quick to call them gone. Humanity had not forced the council to kneel. Earth had not won by frightening anyone. Adam had simply gone back into the dark until the dark gave up the people it was hiding. And because of that, somewhere in the vast machinery of the Galaxy Council, a quiet rule had changed. A living signal could no longer be erased just because it was hard to understand. A person could no longer be abandoned just because saving them was inconvenient. And no one, friend or rival, powerful or forgotten, had to prove political value before someone was required to listen. In the end, Adam Keller did not change the galaxy by winning a battle. He changed it by refusing to let a living voice be buried under a cold decision. Earth did not ask the Galaxy Council to admire humanity. Earth simply asked them to listen one more time before calling someone lost. And maybe that is what makes a civilization worth trusting. Not the power it holds, not the laws it writes, But whether it still turns back when someone weak, forgotten, or inconvenient is waiting in the dark. If this story stayed with you, please take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who enjoys meaningful science fiction. And if you want more stories about humanity standing with dignity in a vast and uncertain galaxy, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening. I hope this story gave you a quiet moment to think and a reason to believe that even in the deepest silence, one voice can still matter.